Hey, this Ramon channel is Alpha 4, and yes, I am on a new device, and yes, hopefully the sound is good. We are doing part 3 of answering Hugh Cha's questions. No, question 21. They are all written in Greek. That's hilarious. I don't understand why that's hilarious, because there's a lot of good stuff written in Greek. He also says that as if I don't know that. So I give you the Nestle Allen. Greek on this side, English on this side. And the UBS, 5th edition. Greek over here, English over there. So yes, I am aware. Koine Greek is amazing. Question number 22. George Sales, a guy who I don't know anything about, mentions in his commentary about Islam's telling of Jesus and his crucifixion, it is supposed by several that the story was an original invention of Muhammad himself, but they are certainly mistaken, for several sections held the same opinion long before his time. So, yeah, there are heresies that influenced Islam. Those heresies are pseudepigraphal and apocryphal works, mostly Gnostic, to be honest about it, and they're heresies. So it doesn't really matter if that's what's informed your prophet and his telling of the stories. They're still heretical stories, and they're still late additions, and they weren't put in the canon. They were rejected from canon specifically because they were late additions to the narrative of Jesus, like 200 years late to the story. Number 23. The Baladeans, in the very beginning of Christianity, denied that Christ himself suffered, but that Simon the Cyrenian was crucified in his place. It's funny because he's just directly referencing a lecture from Bert Ehrman. I actually took about 5 or 6 of his great courses plus, yeah, he's bastardizing Ehrman's work, which is kind of sad because Ehrman's a really good professor. Okay, so he's talking about Irenaeus. Irenaeus is a Christian, and in his book Against Heresies, he was saying that this group of late coming Christians believed this odd, unorthodox belief. So that's not a good argument, buddy. 24. The Corinthians and the Carpathians, maybe? You misspelled this word, buddy. Believed it was not himself, but one of his followers that was crucified. Again, that is a heresy. Okay. 25. Phototus tells us that he read a book entitled Journey of the Apostles. I've actually been trying to get a hold of the Golden Legend. That one's even more fun if you want to talk about just heretical myths. That says Christ was not crucified, but another in his stead, and that therefore he laughed at his crucifiers, according to Phototus, or those who thought that he had crucified him. And then you have Tolian's Nazarenus, whatever. Again, heretics, anti-Christians, and the people who were pro-pagan. This doesn't help your case. All it says is that people who weren't Christian believe different things about Christians and about Christ. It doesn't. Anyway. 26. The original Christians, well before Christianity today, followed what the Quran teaches. That is not true. The original Christians were Jews, so no, they did not follow the Quran. 27. Lastly, linguistic scholars don't know how the Greek language sounded during Jesus' time. They don't know how the New Testament Greek sounded 2,000 years ago, and they don't know because phonetics wasn't invented. So, first off, you are totally discounting the Phoenicians. But okay, let's pretend the Phoenicians didn't exist. Kind of a hard sell, but okay. That Greek that we don't know what they sounded like, there are people who can speak Koine Greek. Also, there are people who still speak Aramaic, the same style of Aramaic that was spoken in Jesus' time. They still speak it today. And Jesus was speaking Aramaic because he spoke Aramaic, but the the stories about him were written in Greek because they're written in different parts after oral tradition had passed along the stories. But okay. 28. The Gospels are written in Koine Greek in Koine Greek form, in dialect, a lesser version of Greek. Why is it a lesser version? I don't think it's a lesser version. Greek does not have the protection of phonetics. That sentence doesn't mean anything. Phonetics don't protect anything. 29. Although the Greek wasn't preserved, the Aramaic language was preserved right at the start. From 1,000 years ago, Arabic is preserved, not the Greek is not. Okay. First off, Aramaic didn't start 1,000 years ago. There's older forms. It's also a Proto-Semitic language that it derives from. Also, the way that the Quran came together, it was originally also oral tradition, and then they wrote it down as your, I don't know what to call them, the followers of Muhammad. As they were dying after a battle, they decided to write it all down. And as they wrote it all down, some of them had some differences. That's why there's different threads of Qurans, different traditions about the Quran, until there was a guy who then came in and said, no, all these other versions are not the version that we're not going to go with my version. And he destroyed and burnt all the other versions. So you also started off with oral tradition, and Aramaic is not a preserved language just because you still speak when you do your Quranic stuff, just because you still speak in that old form of Aramaic doesn't change anything, because in the Coptic church, they still speak the Egyptian. In the Orthodox church, they still speak the Greek. They still speak the Koine Greek in the Orthodox church. In the Latin church, in the Catholic church, we still have Latin Mass. So yeah, your argument doesn't make any sense, because then you could just say, well, then all the divine traditions from Greek Orthodox, Latin Mass, Roman Catholic Latin Mass, and Coptic Egyptian Mass would be preserving the spiritual language going back 2,000 years as opposed to your 1,000 years. That's a bad argument. Okay, 30. The science of phonetics was not introduced to the West until the 19th century, and that's how they taught phonetic English. Arabs preserved and taught Arabic phonetics 1,000 years ago, known as Qiyada. English didn't have it until 100 to 300 years ago. There's no point to that. Just because, okay. Look, I know you guys think that the sound of the words mean something, but they really don't. Language is just language, man. Anything can be translated. I will get to the next one in the next video. Enjoy.